I've really enjoyed Null events. I also am a silent participant on the Null mailing list. I keep listening because I don't have very good many things to talk about. But then when I do, I'm here. Okay, so this talk is going to be a little bit about my journey throughout 12 years of running my own company and a few years even before that. I have different assorted topics to say. These are all my own observations. I've put together these observations from just reading stuff, talking to people, and most importantly, listening to people as I've participated in different forums. Okay, without much ado, I will start off with 13 things that I want to talk about. The first being, it's always targets. There's no particular sequence here. I'm going to try and weave the story around. But the first thing, let's talk about what are the targets, what has been the spectrum of targets around the world, and what has changed in the past 12 years. Beginning 2000, 2001, the focus used to be on servers. We used to hack up a server, get a root shell or something, Solaris, BSD, NT, and then things started getting tighter and tighter. Attacks surfaces kept on decreasing, the spectrum kept on changing, and as servers decreased in importance, the focus shifted to applications on the servers. Because servers are the vehicles, the applications where the business is, and attacks followed applications. Web hacking started coming out to the forefront. And then as they get secured, you then move to the users of the applications and attack their desktops. And then as the web gets more popular, you attack the browsers. And today, the target is on our individual identities. We are for sale, we are for compromise. It's probably worth $2 to $15 per identity in the black market. What has changed in the target scene? Like, where have the shifts come from? Where have the tipping points been? If I were to enumerate the top game changers, I would say it's the first thing was perimeter security. We started, fortifying layer 3, layer 4, packet filtering we are very good at. So we got squeezed out as an attacker. I cannot attack a server services. You start your focus towards web apps. Web apps, as they started getting more and more popular and client server computing decreased, those became the big targets. And web hacking till today is one of the most, what shall we say, the most chewed upon topic in information security. You want to start in InfoSec, you be a web hacker. And that's where everything is, that's where the gold is. On the user side, you have broadband networks. People are connected 24/7, low cost, high speed. Your computers are on, and therefore you are reachable. You're a part of the global village. So you get the global village gundas, you get the global village idiots, everybody knocking on your door 24/7. Bigger game changers are Wi-Fi. So now you can use your computer even when you're in the living room or at the dining table or on a toilet. And then comes social networks, where our own identities are being placed in the digital realm. We exist both physically and digitally, and we are there for the world to see in all our open glory. And the last game changer in the past 3 years or 2 years, I would say, is cellular data. And the way cellular data is changing the game as far as targets is, not only are you a target, you're a moving target. You are being analyzed, correlated, and processed 24/7 by a number of people, by Google, by Apple, by NSA, by whoever it is, by Vodafone, by Airtel. They know where you are, they know who you are, they know what you're doing. They know that Shashi has my phone. They know everything. And they all know that we are here in Goa right now, together. We've met, we've parted ways later on. The way information processing is happening is phenomenal. Okay, talking to you a little bit lessons learned about targets. Some stats I always like to borrow from the Verizon Data Breach Investigations report. Now, what is the topmost attacked industry sector today? 3 years ago, if you'd said it's banks and finances, you'd be right. But today it's not. the targets today, the top spot goes to retail and manufacturing. The banks, as they get tighter, the attacks moves to users of the bank's customers, retail customers, people who write software for the banks, businesses who use the banks. The attacks are moving over there and grab money from the next step, shifted away from the organizations to the users. We are seeing these shifts all the time. Then there was another statement that most of the damages is done by insiders. Big breach means साला अंदर की बात है, कोई अंदर से ले गया. Fact, not really so. Insiders account for less than 30% of attacks or breaches averaged over 5 years. The maximum attacks are still done by external actors today. To also validate the shift that the attacks have moved from servers to users, 2008, servers were targeted 94%, users were targeted 17%. Today, servers are 54% targeted, users are 71% targeted. Big trend shift on targets. The attackers have also changed. 10 years ago, it was hackers, script kiddies, anarchists, DDoS walas, anonymous. Today, who are the maximum attackers? State-sponsored attackers and organized crime. Big money, big muscle, and big power. It's a fact. And one interesting fact I always found from these breach reports is, okay, so what have these guys been doing, How have breaches been detected? The percentage of breach detection attributed to the technology we have here and all that's out in the exhibition booth, what I call as das blinken lights. You have boxes with blinking lights on them that you see and read. These boxes and even audits and fraud detections and managed services account for less than 1% of breaches detected. Usually detections happen after the breach is done and somebody has put up 20,000 cards on pastebin. That is typically how breaches are detected, and then there's an oh shit factor going around. Somebody wakes up at 3 a.m. and there it goes. When we talk about targets, let's also talk about defenses. We've always been trying to defend the targets. This is where the attacks are. But today's world, defenses are rapidly changing. I love this one quote. A wall is only as good as those who defend it. No matter what you buy, what you put in place, a lot of defense comes from two things. Who are the people that are manning your defenses? Because Genghis Khan, to bypass the wall of China, all he had to do was bribe 2-3 sentries, and then they opened the gates and drove the army in. We as Indians also know that too well, how they gave up the 24 Parganas and how compromises happen and armies march into our nations. We have a few hundred years of history of that. But not only it is the people, it is also the intelligence behind these people that is going to count in defenses today. Because the more you invest in technology, the more blinking lights you buy, the more signature updates you download, the more awareness training you throw on everybody, today it is getting to be a point of diminishing returns. Antivirus today is just making a computer painfully slow. It's not doing shit. It's detecting attacks after they happen, like the Mumbai police, they come up on the scene after this Jay and Viru are pretty much done. That's no fun. That's no good. When we talk about users, today if we say that the target has shifted to the user base, how do you prevent users from getting owned? And a fantastic quote by Bruce Schneier. You heard of this quote? The user is going to pick dancing pigs over security every time. The scenario, let me give you the background context, is imagine if you have a web page which shows dancing pigs. There's pigs on the screen jumping up and down, and then you get a warning. It says this applet can cause malicious actions to happen on your computer. It's asking for elevated privileges. Do you want to allow it and see the dancing pigs, or do you want to take the security option and say no? Every time the user is going to get a pop-up, they're going to say, get this thing out of my way, I want the dancing pigs. So we leave security to users' judgment, and then you say, array, got owned there. Well, guess what? They're going to go for the dancing pigs. So today, if you want to talk about defense, defending your targets, the need of the hour is, as I say, intelligence-driven defense in real time. You cannot be caught with a static defense strategy. You have to be able to adapt, move, respond, and react in time with the threats that are coming up. Without this, you're done. Enough about attacks and targets. Sorry, enough about targets. Let's talk a little bit about exploits and evolution of exploits. This is what again, part 2 of the story that I've learned. I've been in this spectrum for more than 16 years now. We've seen exploits from root shell, technotronic.com, packetstorm.org for all the old timers who are used to getting some C code, compiling it and running it on socket level stuff and all. And now you have, of course, exploit databases like Milworm and all. But over the years, as sophistication of defenses has increased, sophistication of exploits has also evolved, increased. I mean, today, writing an exploit requires Jedi skills. First, to find the bugs. Go talk to guys like WebDevil. They know how to find the bugs. Then you have to get a Rahul Shashi on your team, who unfortunately is speaking parallel to this talk. I would love to see his talk. Then they'll code it up for you. And then you have to get some clever dick who can deliver this whole exploit without getting caught. So getting exploits going today is phenomenally hard. As I said, 12 years ago it was very easy. Jokers like us, well, other than me, these 4 guys are not jokers, they're pretty damn sharp. But we could write an exploit for the lols. We go bragging around it, it won't get patched for 6-7 months. We'll have field day popping shells and hoo-haing about it, going to conferences and, playing the ego game. But today, for those of you who were in Amit Sharma's talk yesterday, today exploit writing is serious business. It takes number of man-months to research and write a 0-day. It costs a lot to write a 0-day too. And you don't see any big exploits out in the public domain afresh. 0 days in the public, rarely seen, unless you're like, brutally stupid, you won't drop a 0-day out in the open. The other thing that these exploits alone is not the answer here. Today, exploits are one part of the whole cyber weapon game. You have the payload, you have the delivery process, you have the vectors, you have the targets. Number of things go into making this weaponization. Let's take a step back and take a few quotes from a few friends that I've had the pleasure of interacting and knowing very well. What would it cost to put an exploit together? So Harun Mir, very good friend of mine, his question, and this he presented at the CCD Center of Excellence conference in Tallinn, a NATO conference, NATO think tank conference. So his question was, for a few $100,000, could you put together a team that would break in just about anywhere? Scenario in 2010. Answers, how many of you said yes if you were to ask? Okay, Nicola says yes, few others. So answers, 4 of us said yes. Yeah. Me, Ivan, who's Core Impact, FX in Berlin, and Harun. What is the sum? What is that few $100,000? $100,000 to $500,000. You get a crack team that can break in anywhere. This is a fraction of the cost it's going to take you to develop a tank today. Or, a sub-fraction of the cost to develop a submarine today. And how many people can afford these $500,000 in the public and private sector to put together a crack shot team? There you have the answers. So on one hand, Harun also says that attacking is much cheaper than defense. Defending is always way more expensive. But today, for us, say $500,000 a lot. Microsoft pays you a $100,000 bug bounty on a fresh IE exploit. It's a hell of a lot of money. It's going to make one of us really, really happy. But for them, it is, they can sneeze it out. For them, it is very cheap. For them, they don't need to hire a team of 20 QA engineers and pay them $3 million in annual salary when they can get the job done by crowdsourcing and pay top dollar for that. But the other thing is that what we see as exploits are very different than what's seen out in the world today. Like tool chains like Stuxnet and all, they're way more complex, not just the exploits, everything's together. And if you have top dollar being paid, there's also top markets for it. You have your buyers, people who buy and trade the exploits. Fantastic movie, you should see this, Lord of War. Pretty much disturbs you, will make you not sleep for a night, but that's reality. Who buys the exploits? Governments, anybody who has $500,000, let's just say, they'll buy the exploits. If you have them, you can buy them. And there'll be guys like my dear friend, the Grug, who will sell it to you. Of course, he is walking a fine line between, ecstasy and disaster. It's, oh well. But I really like him. And if you ever meet the Grug in a conference, lots of stories to learn from him. But these are the prices paid as of 2012. I think at least double. Double must be the norm today. The paradox of attacks is it's not, rocket science is one thing, but our country thrives on jugaad. And a jugaad exploit is as effective sometimes as a rocket science exploit. You can today have a full ASLR depth bypass of Chrome, and Pinkie Pie will take 6 vulnerabilities and get your Chrome browser pwned, or you just tell some donkey to download a software and install it, and they'll pwn themselves. It works. I mean, you have to just find the right approach, the right person, and the right psycho trick to make it work. So don't put anything past. In sophistication is one thing, but humans are humans. If at all, they're getting less sophisticated by the day. I sometimes tend to joke, the amount of population in this world is a constant. I mean, amount of intelligence in this world is a constant, and the population is increasing. Okay. Observation number 3, what the word security means to me. People are saying, what would you call secure? What is your definition of secure? A lot of us will have different definitions, and that's fine. It all depends upon our point of view. Traditionally, you always have these things associated with security. The CIA principles, you have accountability, invulnerability, up to date. This is what we write in reports as auditors. Patch lagao, ye sara kya kiya tumne, you're not updated, your goddamn accounts are, blank passwords, null passwords. I've written these reports, I write them for a living. I know, but so be it. But is this solving our thing? No. We are year after year doing the same thing. Let's step away from this. I found a huge bug in Java. Back then Java was respectable. A lot of people were saying good things about Java. In 2002, this was like on J2E servers. Found a huge bug. Source code disclosure and remote code execution on all the top Java servers because of a flaw in the J2E servlet model. So that there was no bug bounty, nothing. There we wrote up an advisory. I was working for Foundstone at the time. Wrote up an advisory and sent it to the vendors for free. We just wanted acknowledgement for that, nothing else. So vendors come back to us, BEA says there's a configuration mistake. If you write uppercase JSP, then you have to map a JSP handler. I said, nahi, aisa nahi hota hai. Then they had to back down and accept it. Sun says, who gave you the authority to break our software? They wanted to sue us. I said, like, screw you guys. LR, that time before it was Macromedia owned, they said, oh, thanks guys, you're very happy. They sent us t-shirts and mugs and little cinema coupons. They said, thanks for your efforts. We got swag, we were happy. Most professional was IBM. They said, okay, thank you for reporting. First exchange PGP keys. Let us reproduce the vulnerability. Give us 7 days to pass it to our gold customers, get them updates first. Patches are released. After the patch is released, after 3 days, they published our advisory on their site, gave us a credit. End of story. Fantastically handled. But there was no coordinated responses. Maturity was very variable. Today, the defenders, they are trying to defend the software. I have 2 levels of defenders, the mature and the immature. obvious to see which box is which. Guys like Google, Microsoft, and now even Mozilla, they're getting the game together. They're high exposure software, of course. They're improving their programs of patches, testing, internal QA. They also crowdsource their testing using bug bounties and have proper programs in place, coordinated responses, and they're on top of the game. The other guys still have a lot of lessons to learn. Some of them are stuck in inertia, some of them are stuck in ego, and some of them are stuck with really messy code that they just cannot help themselves. Past couple of years, I mean past 3-4 years especially, bug bounties have become really mature, and they're now integrated part of our industry. And today bug bounties are a very high stakes game. Ponium, and I wish Chris Evans was here, you should Google up his presentation at Hack in the Box called Ponium Element 1337. Really good stuff about the type of bugs he's encountered, what they've had to do, how much they've had to pay. Fantastic statistics he's released. But they come with $1 million, $2 million, $3 million, $5 million at every conference. There's one happening in Vancouver next month for CanSec West. They'll have Pwn to Own, and they're coming with a big treasure chest. They're paying up to $60,000, $100,000 per bug turned in right then and there. But what they're also doing with it, they're patching this bug in less than 12 hours and pushing the updates out. It's not only the patch, but they want to make sure that their customers have the updates in the shortest possible time. This is what I call as maturity. Now, as an aside, bug bounties are great, but they're also a lure. And a number of people that I've talked to, they say, "Arey, I made so much money out of bug bounties, so now I'm just going to spend the next 3 months looking for bugs." I say, don't do that. Bug bounties are not a sustainable way to make a career. And most of the times, if they pay peanuts, or you're going to get monkeys. If you want to, you're excited by finding bugs, I would just say, go apply to Facebook, get a QA job. They'll pay you a lot more. Or, better yet, use your skills, use your spare time to build the goose that lays the golden eggs. Forget finding individual bugs. Write a fuzzer, write a crawler, write a tool to automate this and monetize yourself, get your fame, get your credibility, make a name for yourself doing this. That is going to be way more than all the $1337 that you can accumulate over the years. So coming back to what secure means to me after saying all this, to me security means two things: resilience and fitness. The ability to regain your original shape and form after you're disturbed in the shortest possible period of time. Elasticity. If you work out, you run on the beach for an hour, how quickly does your pulse rate become normal? That's your degree of fitness. How fit are you in terms of security? And I make a statement today: if a vendor or an organization wants to be called fit, their time to fix should be less than 72 hours. Even 72 hours is a long time now. Some cross-site scripting bugs we've revealed for our banking customers in India have taken 7 months to fix. That is not fit. That is highly unfit. I would say that is, terminally sick. But this is what fitness is. If you're exceeding 72 hours in turnaround time, you're not fit. That is not secure. I don't measure security by resistance to vulnerability. I measure security by the speed with which you can come back on top again. And whenever we talk about security, there's always a discussion about two words: standards and compliance. I'm not going to talk too much about that. I'm just going to present some few quick, sharp views. So, does this picture give you a sense of security? Does this picture give you a sense of compliance? Letter of the law is obeyed. Driver is wearing a helmet. Uski BB mar jaye, gets splattered on the road and has to be scraped with a spatula. That the law doesn't say anything. So he's compliant, but has he got stuff to lose? Sure. So I always say compliance is not equal to security. You can be compliant and you can be secure. These are two completely different things. Case in point, heard of the PCI DSS standard? MasterCard, Visa, tokofying it on all, yeah? Have they protected these guys? Obviously not. Now there's a big debate going on, you should have saved our ass because we have the PCI standard. Well, if you have the PCI standard, what can we do to your organization? This is the classic fight that will happen with compliance. You have to look about that. And I love this quote from Office Space, Peter Gibbons. My only real motivation is not to be hassled. That and the fear of losing my job, but that will make only work somebody so hard enough not to get fired. This is the attitude for compliance, not security. I also say that to all the financial regulators in the world, with all your regulations and good governance and all those things, accountability, could you have prevented any of these guys? The rogue traders who pretty much 4 individuals on this planet have taken 10 times more money than all hackers put on this planet combined for the past 2 decades. And tomorrow there will be another Ponzi scheme king. Tomorrow there will be another scamster who will work their way into the financial system. Breaches, scamsters, these are a way of life. Cannot fix these, deal with it. And as far as an organization or any CIO, CISO sitting here, my question is always this: who are you more scared of? Attackers or auditors? This is, first, if an auditor is a greater threat, if you're in Singapore, the monetary authority of Singapore is like, a big rakshas on your head. Satisfy them first, everything else is mild and easy. Otherwise, you get thrown in prison and you lose your bank. So for them, yes, they have to comply. Baap, mere, bachao. Fine, but you know what you're paying for and that's what you're going to get. Okay, so on inventions and what I have done, a little bit about my journey through R&D and things that I've cooked up. Some of them have worked, some of them have worked, some of them have not. But when I look back on these 12 years, I always find that it has always been some need, something has bothered me, something has not let me do things the way I want. And all these hurdles and obstacles are driving my need for innovation and coming up with something new. Every time there is a hole, then there has to be some bypass around it. So you have firewalls, then you come up with one-way hacking, and all these techniques have been born as a result of getting around some limitations. Initially, I tried writing 2 books, saying, okay, if I write a book, people will read it and get the message. The books did okay-ish. Nobody really got the message, and the books are also old. Also takes up a lot of time to write a book. Today, I would say you write a blog, it's way more effective than writing a book. But then, over the past few years, like in 1999, I started thinking about inside-out attacks. Reverse shells today are popular. Back then, they were not, and we wrote a paper on it. 2001, the whole concept of one-way hacking, which also I wrote a paper on it and presented it. Like, how do you get your remote web shells, remote uploaders? Today, these are all very common tricks. But firewalls would not allow a back connection out, then everything over HTTP just one way in and only response out. Then we started writing scanners for a living in the company, and to improve accuracy in scanners, I did something called page signatures to minimize false positives, detect error pages from real pages. Wrote an HTTP fingerprinting tool, which I have been very lazy and not updated in the past few years, but that could identify disguised web servers because we need to profile them very well. So HTTP print was the first web fingerprinter. 2008 time frame, I started looking at browser security, came up with a concept called Teflon, which renders the browser's attack surface as non-stick, no exploits can stick on it. But then I realized that this is not going to work because the browser core itself is fundamentally broken. No matter how much Teflon you put on the browser, it's not going to save itself from exploits. And this taught me the lesson of failed research. Presenting this failed research is also as important as presenting successful research. Because a number of people got the idea saying, yeah, this cannot work. And I have learned from other people's failures, other people have learned from my failures. Even if you do something and fail, don't be afraid to write it up. The community would love to learn from you. And then came exploit delivery techniques. started toying around by hosting an entire exploit on tiny URL. This is an SMB exploit, alpha encoded shellcode. The whole thing is sitting on tiny URL. You go to a browser, it will open up VLC plugin and compromise it straight away. This is just tricks, web tricks, not going to get detected. Beautiful delivery mechanisms. And then came in 2011 the whole technique of encoding exploit as ASCII data as grayscale pixels, what I call as the 255 shades of gray exploits. So characters, JavaScript is represented as grayscale pixels, and then you decode it using an HTML canvas on the fly and hit it. So all your exploit travels as innocent images. What is worse, an image can also be a JavaScript. This is something I call as chameleon JavaScript or cross-container scripting. You have something like this, the GIF file, if you view it in a GIF viewer, it's a GIF file. If you run it in a script tag, it is a script. Perfectly valid GIF, perfectly valid script. These are, multipartite things. And then I wrote an exploit with just two images. One script to run the decoder, and the other, so one image to have a script which runs a decoder, the other image which has exploit data embedded as transparent pixels in it. So on the face of it, you only see two images, but then they combine and blow things up. And as a validation, just last month, Sukuri Security, you can't read the tweet over here, but they found this type of image encoded payloads in the wild. They did a blog post, and then I sent out a tweet saying theory becomes practice. So sure enough, these techniques are working. All right. Let's talk about InfoSec conferences. That's why we're all here. Part of my journey has been always through InfoSec conferences. I have enjoyed them, I've presented at them, I've learned at them. My journey began with Black Hat 1999, where I was a spectator. First time I saw the world of big InfoSec conferences and DEF CON. Again, I wish Jeff Moss was here. It was my first evening there, I was having dinner with him. I didn't know who Moss was. I didn't know who guys sitting around me at the dinner table were. One of them was Mudge, the other was Aleph1, third was Windows Snyder, fourth was Dildog. The Loft guys, the big guys were there. That is when, conferences were small. We could network with one another. We could learn off each other and see the best techniques. I've had the pleasure of being at many conferences. If you look at statistics from conferences, today there's a conference happening every 3 days. These are statistics taken from the Con Collector run by Haroon Mir at things.com. He has all the stats. 158 conferences recorded for 2013. He's missing some data. And 5,000 plus talks recorded for 2013. It's just too much. It's too much of it. What really is the case, I don't know. But see, other thing I found is hacker conferences. They're very unique in nature. For Star Wars fans, I always like the Mos Eisley Cantina. You have everybody in here. I mean, where else can you find intelligence officers, product designers, students, engineers, company heads, researchers, underground people, communication guys? Everybody comes into these conferences without bias of race, gender, religion, caste, creed, financial status, education, background. If there is one community that is truly global today, it is our community. No other conference will have this phenomenal mix of people ever, and all respecting one another. This is why I love them. This is why I love my community as well. And this is where I learned from. The other trend that I'm very happy to see is the rise of hacker spaces. Few of you have hacker spaces in India, but I always liken it to, if you're a Sherlock Holmes fan, which I am, the Diogenes Club. See, hackers like us, we're different people. We thrive on our own work. We thrive, we get pleasure out of doing what we really like. We're committed to our cause. We may or may not be called social animals. We may be misfits. We may be blasphemers. We may be naysayers. We may be anarchists. We are rebels. We are free thinkers. but we like our own clubs. We like to sit in a village and do lockpicking. We like to build Arduinos together. The world says, "Kya kar rahe sale, pagal ho gaye." But that is, how if you read Sherlock Holmes, the Diogenes Club was exactly for that. They may be misanthropes, they may be shy people or introverts, but they are not averse to having comfortable chairs in the latest periodicals. And I love hacker spaces for this particular reason. And my type of hacker cons, the stuff that I like today, small events where I can connect with everyone, single or dual track. Not only is it important to connect with the speakers, it's most important to connect with the audience, because that is where most of my learning happens now. By staying in the conference circuit, that is how I learn every year. That's what's kept me going, and hopefully Shah. But the one thing I do want to point out is there is a disconnect. There is a gap between the researchers and the industry, something conference organizers should work towards bridging. I don't know how the gap can be bridged, because here you are a researcher and the princess is looking not for Mr. Right, she is looking for Mr. Right now. The industry says, "Abhi mere ko tum kya karoge? What fix can you offer me now? If not, I don't want to hear your fairy tales about image encoded attacks. Screw you, go away." But tomorrow when it lands on the doorstep, you get the point here. If we can bridge this gap, it would be a very, very fruitful collaboration. How to do it? I think the most important solution here is to just bring these two together. Invite people for free. Invite some sharp thinkers from the industry for free. Go to them, use connections, use social connections, and just by having the presence in the same place for a few repeated runs, is just going to bring it together. Then see what happens, put your best foot forward. But I think we as researchers have to take the initiative of wooing the industry's collaboration. They don't have the time to step and look towards us. On the topic of who we are as hackers, few interesting things that I've learned. Every time you do something, you look back, analyze who you are. Who are you? Who is a hacker? What is my understanding of a hacker? My classic analogy comes from War Games, a movie which I really like very much. We are hackers. We're not white hat, we're not gray hat, we're not blue hat, whatever, or red hat. We are people who like doing what we do. We push the envelope. We don't do good things or bad things. We just do things differently. We try to make something out of nothing. We try to exploit the limited resources we have to the maximum possible. We try to make lassi in washing machines and run tractors using oil engines. We question everything. Sashi, we started at 210, so can I go up to 310? 3.5 or come to a compromise? Okay, my hacker hero, Sherlock Holmes. He is the ultimate geek. He may know 90 different types of tobacco ash, but doesn't know if the earth went around the sun or the sun went around the earth. But he's a geek, and he used his geekery to solve things for himself. That's a hacker. Today I told you, we are going to get these labels in the 21st century. Now, I'm not going to say whether we are right or wrong, but whenever we challenge the status quo of society, we are going to get these labels. There have been people who are being persecuted for these labels. Tomorrow it may be you. Today it is these guys. Whatever you do, whatever you're doing, think about who you are. And a very important realization I got from Alex Stamos, who's a very good friend and a very sharp researcher. He presented a talk called The White Hat's Dilemma in DEF CON 12. The time to think of your ethical boundaries is before you are put in a difficult situation. To each one of you, I highly encourage you to read this talk of his, the slides are online, and answer all the questions he's asked. For example, if you find a remote exploit in a widespread product, what do? Answer it to yourselves. You announce the flaw, you build a black hat talk around it, you do responsible disclosure, you use it to sell consulting to the vendor, you weaponize it and sell to your government, you weaponize it to sell to a trader, use it for yourself for fun and profit. Answer these hard questions and get to know who you are, and then commit yourself to the creed, whatever you do. But stay true to yourself. So who am I? I don't know who I am still. I'm trying to discover. And for me, answering those questions is hard. But the one thing I know is that I like having fun by doing InfoSec stuff. I like to discover new stuff. And I've been very fortunate to stand on the shoulders of giants. Throughout the years that I've met, it is these friends who have taught me new things. It is these friends' goodwill which has saved me from some disaster. Good advice, both technical and professional. New ideas, new innovations, and of course, seeing the world and learning how nice people are in this community. Really enjoyed doing that. And then saw this movie called Big Fish. You know, I'm a family man now, and sometimes, you know, when in this movie, the dad was telling a story to the son of all these strange people he met in the world. And the son never believed them until they all showed up at his funeral. And the guys we've met, you know, imagine a scene where an information technology minister is being greeted in a hotel, and a guy is going around almost naked in his towel, screaming at a girl who slept with him and stole his wallet and ran away. This is the InfoSec community. This circus happens. Nobody will believe it, but it is true. You know, we have all sorts of people here. I belong to them, and this is where I'm most comfortable with. I'm not very comfortable at an MBA convention or, you know, even with my own family social parties. I'm comfortable here. This is my family. Okay, I'm going to speed up things a little bit because I'm at point 9, I have to go to point 13. But my journey of building products. NetSquare started as a product company. We built a number of products. We still keep on building products. Out of all these, just one product is successful, Server Defender, which still took 4 years to build and 2-3 versions before the public liked it and started using it. We're still not selling rapidly, but we learned a lot from our mistakes. If you're building a product, what I say, don't build the Homer car. Build a car that people want to use, not what you want to use. We as engineers tend to put in too much features. Second thing, don't try to solve all the problems. Yes, we say that scanners suck. And this paper called Why Johnny Can't Pen Test also says the same thing. But then again, if you try to solve the whole problem, you're not going to fix it. Never. Know your limits, build a product for that. And there's a market for scanners. People are buying them. That's all right. Sell to them properly and do a good job of that. The one thing about being Indian is something that I want to point about. See, when it comes to building products, we sadly are at a disadvantage because of our 3-idiot school system. Our thoughts are being shaped to conform to the norm. You cannot be innovative, you cannot ask questions in school, you cannot write an answer your way. Fundamentally, this thing is the biggest hurdle to our nation when it comes to being a leader in security or anything else for that matter. Coming to some adverse scenarios. If you stay in the industry for 12 years, you're going to be hacked, you're going to face adversity. 2 adversities that I faced, some of you may very well know what happened to me a couple of years ago. A lot of stuff was stolen. You're always going to have stolen ideas, you're always going to have stolen content. It is at this time that the community really helped me out. Well, sometimes, if people steal from you, be proud of it. Here's an example of my web hacking book being pirated for 5 ringgit in the Malaysian pirate bazaars. I'm very flattered. I mean, at least I wrote something worth being pirated about. I bought my own copy. But sometimes you can't be flattered. One friend, a very dear friend, taught me a lesson. This is email. Just let it be. Keep calm and karma on, is my motto. Things will sort itself out, but fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Learn who your friends are, learn who your enemies are, learn what to be careful about. Don't fall in the same pit again. This is what I learned. And carry on. Okay. Last couple of important points here. On stunts and sensationalism. And I have seen my fair share of stunts. If you're at an InfoSec conference, there are highly technical people, high energy people, highly skilled people, and highly egotistical people. And you're going to have the fair share of stunts and stunt hackers And you're going to have the fair share of people who want to sensationalize all this and report it as if the world's coming to an end, like a big, weird Michael Bay techno thriller. Inspiring quote by one of my favorite authors, Kipling. If you can bear to hear the truth you've spoken, twisted by knaves to make a trap for fools. As a researcher, be very careful what you say. This is something I've learned the hard way. My friend Grug runs an OPSEC blog. He's a master of OPSEC today. A very clever guy. He has a few rules about engaging with journalists. Vet the journalist. Be very clear to specify what's on and off the record. Never answer live. Always in writing. Be able to judge. Otherwise, say no. Don't let people put words in your mouth, because we are not very social creatures. We'll tend to blurt out stuff and then we'll be misquoted. Stay on target and watch your mouth. And sometimes not opening your mouth is the best thing you can do. Something I've learned the hard way. And then your stuntmen, talk by Hugo Tissot. He was describing vulnerabilities, but the way he presented and dramatized it, people reported it like this: smartphone app can hijack a plane from the ground. Public here padegi bolega, boss, you don't fly, yaar. People with Android phones will bring your plane. It doesn't happen this way. But good friend of mine, Andrea Barizani, his quote at No Such Con keynote last year: preventing security theater is our responsibility. It's up to us to make sure the message we deliver does not get misconstrued. So as researchers, do make this your responsibility. Because when you do, IT security community loses the reputation. For example, Airbus will never hire Hugo Tissot ever. They're going to go somewhere else. They're not going to go hire the service of the guy who make them look stupid. But then, sometimes the circus still continues. Very recently, you have had these New York Times reporting that that Snowden used a low-cost tool to grab all the files, or wget. Everybody here uses wget. And the founder of Netscape responded, it's like saying the gardener used a lawnmower to mow the lawn. I mean, wget is anything, it's a browser, for God's sake. But then people will just pick it up. At Times of India picked it up and splashed this masala statement all around. Be very careful of not getting into a circus. Lastly, couple of things about Indian scenario and the cyber security scene. Luminaries, yesterday I've talked about this, I'm going to keep this very short. But two things, rather three things I want to say, which our country can very much use. One is, take the example from the DARPA Cyber Fast Track program. Bring the community into the scene without any bias. Don't make them join clubs, don't make them sign up for this, don't make them join communities, don't get them bloody empaneled and shit like that. If they have a bright idea, you give them funding after validating the idea and then work with the idea. And what Mudge did, Mudge was a hacker turned into a government guy. What Mudge did is he rapidly changed the way people were doing things in an organization which was resistant to change. He brought fresh talent in, he brought new ideas in with very little cost. Offering somebody $50,000 to write a forensics toolkit for Android is great, and here you got something brand new. You pay for it only after it's delivered. You don't have to pay for it otherwise. And the community will do this for you. Enable them, involve them, don't try to create clubs and silos. Two things India really needs. One is indigenous cryptography. I don't need to make the point why. It's just that we need this, we need it not only for military, we need it for commercial as well. Let our stock exchanges, banks use our own verified, validated crypto. There's a lot of math talent in this country. Let's now put it to good use for us. And the second thing highly needed is a trusted OS. Something what Theo D. Rat does to OpenBSD is painfully agonizes over every detail and validates it and takes personal pride in doing it. But we need a validated, trusted OS initiative for running our sensitive stuff. Server version and desktop version. And lastly, about the future. I've been making a lot of predictions about shape of things to come. In 2010, I said that DEP bypassing ROP code and man in the browser and political cyber warfare will be the next big thing. Sure enough, it was. 2011, browser attacks, PDF attacks, web app attacks, and social engineering. Yes, that also happened. 2012, I said full ASLR by 2014. That's happening now. 64-bit space, mobile attacks, a reality. Real-time analytics being used in the defense game, that's also getting to be a reality. The boundaries between systems and people are blurred, and IPv6 is a big game changer. 2013, I said this is where the big 0 days will lie. But today, if I want to make a statement about the future, I say the future is here. We're there, we're living it. I don't know what else to say, except for the word real time. Interestingly, my good friend Roloff Temming, who's a hacker, he became a filmmaker and created this fantastic short film called Real Time. Google for it, and it's a sci-fi thing, but you know what the world is leading up to. See, Moore's law has reached a tipping point. You know, for us, it is able to acquire, store, analyze, and correlate data in large volumes in real time today. Today, we are being analyzed and correlated, as I said. Tomorrow, there will be prediction models set on you. And these systems will try to predict what you're going to do next. Minority Report coming alive as we speak. Look at this cartoon later in the slides. I'm going to just push it to the end. And the last thing I always wonder about in the future is, will the internet remain a level playing field? So far it has been. Will it remain one? Answer obviously is no. It's just a question of how long will it remain in a level playing field. I don't know how long, but one of the markers that I look for, again to take a Sherlock analogy, Sherlock has these rats around London. If these rats do a strange thing, you know something's going wrong in London. If the Pirate Bay is not allowed to continue anymore, I know that we have lost the internet. So as long as the Pirate Bay sails, I know that we still have a chance on the internet. All right, well, pretty much thanks to these people who I interviewed and borrowed their quotes for Haroon and Marco at Thinkst, Andrea Barizani, Roloff Temming, Alex Stamos, and the Grug. And a big thank you to the Null community for having me here again, putting up with my thoughts. And I wish you well. Enjoy the weekend. Thank you very much. Any questions?